Okay, first off, I love this episode, but I have to say this. They ruined it. They just ruined it. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they ruined the Volume 7 adaptation. I mean, it was good. The episodes were good, but the way they did it is something I alluded to in a previous video. They wrote these episodes with complete tunnel vision. They go through the story, focused on Rudius, and hey, that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do with Mushoku Tensei. The main character deserves the spotlight because the plot revolves around him. But they go through the story, focused on Rudius, and they don't worry about anyone else. No one else gets a chance to shine, even if it's integral to the moment they're building up to. Even if it's the foundation to half of the emotional impact of a scene, they ignore it because of time constraints. Sara, you got screwed this episode. Not by Rudius, but by the writers and whoever made the dumbass decision to limit this volume's adaptation to 3 episodes. Just 3. Not 4, 3. And before anyone tries arguing with me saying, oh, it was fine, they didn't need any more time with this volume because it ultimately doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, I said the same exact thing in the last video, but looking back on it, I was wrong. Why? Because moments fucking matter. I typically remember media in terms of impactful moments they present. I judge them based mainly on the moments it provides. Now, you can get into the nitty-gritty, talking about pacing, talking about visual consistency, or the music. You can do all those things right. But at the end of the day, years from now, everyone will remember the show or the movie, or even the book, based on the memorable moments it presents, the good or the bad. Now, if you're an anime only, you're probably wondering, what could I possibly be talking about? The end of the episode is great, right? Those scenes serve perfectly as the moments you're talking about. And yes, those were good scenes. Yes, they were emotional, but they're missing Sara's side of the story. Sara's story makes the scenes infinitely better to look back on. With how she first viewed Rudius as a rich, spoiled kid who doesn't belong as an adventurer, how she regretted seeing Rudy in that light after all he did to save her, how she grew attached to Rudius after being together as a party for so long, and how after all these signs of rejection, betrayal, and harshness displayed by Rudy to her,
それでダメでもいいや。あんなガキみたいな女、こっちから願い下げだってんだ。やっぱ女ならエリーゼみたいなバインバインじゃなきゃダメだ。
Sara left Rudy and grew depressed after everything he said about her. And after Sara finds out what actually happened, she wakes up from her self-pity and recognizes that Rudy was in his own state of crisis, and how what happened back then was out of his control. Then, after this realization, Sara finally had the confidence to apologize to Rudius for what happened. And once she tried finding him, she discovers that Rudius already left town with Soldat's crew, but she was too scared to pursue him. She feared that he might not listen, feared he would push her away. Additionally, she feared that his leaving town without saying anything to them was also a sign of rejection. A sob had escaped her throat. She knew her love had ended, and as she watched the rising sun, she thought to herself, but if it comes to pass that we meet again, I'd like to apologize and be sincere about it. This moment, makes this whole situation all the more heartbreaking, and they skipped it. Why the fuck? Let this be a lesson for Core 2, because it's probably going to be too late to change anything for the rest of Core 1. If they fuck up Volume 11, Chapter 5, by skipping it entirely, like they did here, they would have not learned a thing. Delay it. Please, delay it. If you aren't going to adapt that chapter because it's a POV change and takes too much time, delay it. Add another episode to the catalog or something, because moments like those matter. Moments like these matter. And if you fail to include these moments, these heartbreaking, tear-jerking moments, then you fail to capture what Mushoku Tensei is. The series isn't about action or the world building or anything like that. Yeah, sure, those are important factors, but the series is mainly about the emotional storytelling and the characters. Rudy is the centerpiece for a lot of emotional bits, but not all of them. Throughout the series, we will run into moments when the side characters have more going on in their heads than Rudius. And wouldn't it be a good idea to focus on them for just a little bit? Nope, we don't have time. Quickly, Studio Bind. We must get the season adapted as quickly as possible, in the most conventional way possible. 24 episodes. It can't be any more than that. If we have to delay this for another season or two for a few more additional episodes, we lose the attention of our audience. No, you wouldn't. Adapt it right. Get these moments right. They are the essence of the series, and if you don't get them right, you fail as an adaptation. Oh, fuck. Anyway, I think I've ranted for long enough. Let's actually review the episode. The pacing in this episode was a lot better than the last one. It wasn't as polished as episode 1, but it was still pretty good. Once again, the anime managed to do Soldat justice this episode. It made him the best bro of all time in this series. After finding out that Rudy's problems managed to catch up to him, Soldat knew he needed help. And though he hated him in the last episode, it's clear now that Rudius was going to be a wreck if someone wasn't there to pull him out of this rut. So Soldat took the initiative and tried to support him in any way he could. So my boy pulled out all the stops, like the Giga Chad he is. Although,
俺の経験で言えば直前の行動が悪かったのかもな。
やっぱり下手くそだ。
That did not help, man. If you don't appreciate his character after this episode, there is seriously something wrong with you, honestly. I'm so glad Studio Bind managed to do these scenes right. I was afraid that the fast pacing was going to continue and that we wouldn't have a moment to breathe, but all these scenes with the bar and the prostitute really flowed well. That outburst was also directed really well. The close-up shots to Rudy were done excellently, and choosing not to show Soldat's face till near the end of his monologue was a great choice to have us focus more on Rudius and not worry so much about the consequences for, well, punching someone like Soldat, the same guy who did this. This episode was a lot more explicit than I thought it would be too. This really gives me hope for the rest of the season with all the sexual themes expressed in the following volumes. The animation for Rudius's facial expressions after that Sara incident were done perfectly too. I didn't think I was going to get used to this young adult character design, but these scenes made those worries go away pretty quickly. Also, I haven't said this yet in many of my previous reviews, but the song for the opening is really good. It's cool to hear an artist take the role for making a new OP, and many people were concerned about that OP conflicting with the tone of the novel once they started hearing it, but with the scenes the show decided to open with, it managed to fit pretty well. However, this tone does not reflect the actual tone of the episode. The lighthearted nature of the scenes displayed in the beginning of the episode matches the kind of lifestyle that Rudius wishes to obtain. He wants to live a simple life, enjoying the pleasantries of average people, exploring everything that a town or village has to offer, surrounded by people he cares about and trusts. The Rudius we used to know in season 1 would get flustered and paranoid over everything he does in a date like this, but here it's clear that he doesn't have any anxieties to be concerned about. He's not worried if Sara would approve of how he interacts with her or how he behaves to others. Rudy is just being himself, and he feels comfortable in front of Sara because he didn't have any ulterior motives or goals with this date. Rudy just wanted to enjoy his time with Sara. It wasn't until Sara introduced a romantic mood that Rudius got worried about how he acted, but it's clear from this sharp change in thinking that Rudy didn't really want the date to end with anything sexual. It's obvious that Sarah wanted to get to this stage, but Rudius didn't want any of that. He just wanted to make her smile. But due to his anxiety, due to his past trauma, she ended the date with a face of disgust and left, just like before. After all he reconciled and came to terms with during the first episode, he's now back to square one, alone, leaving the people he cares about unhappy and disapproving.
なんでいなくなるんだよ。いてくれよ。嘘でもいいから笑ってくれよ。あんなやり方されると辛いんだよ。
Now Rudius is left a husk of who he used to be. That joyful and optimistic side of Rudius we saw in the beginning is now in hiding. But unlike before, Rudy knows that he has to keep going. He can't continue his life in misery. For the sake of both himself and the many people who love him, Rudy must power through no matter how tough it gets. He must keep living and hope that something, anything, eventually brings his true self back.